Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast for another team a season preview. And this time, the team we are doing is the Washington Commanders. And with me, I've got a first time on the podcast, and I believe a first time ever on any podcast. So it's good to be the ones popping your cherry when it comes to your podcast career. I'm here with James Collier, writer for the Touchdown. James, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Andy. Yeah, as you said, definitely my first ever podcast appearance. So yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, hopefully it's not too bad.
I'm sure it's be fine. I mean, I've met you in person a few times. I
Yeah,
remember meeting you at the FFC event last year at Belushi's. I also remember meeting you at the Tottenham Stadium in the media section. I believe it was, I can't think whether it was the Bills Jags or whether it was the Titans Ravens. I remember meeting you there as well.
yeah.
So yeah, we've
Bills,
already met.
Jags. Yeah,
Was it Bills Jags? Okay, yeah, that's
yeah.
yeah. So it's it's not as if we've never met before. So we got that little bit of a rapport before we done the podcast. So yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
Cool. Yeah, same. Yeah. Did a bit of writing for the touchdown, so managed to get press tickets to that game, the Bills Jags. Yeah, which was obviously great, and yeah, nice to see you there as well.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, was it your first time doing media stuff, or you done it before?
Yeah, first time. Never been in sort of the media area for anything like that before. So yeah, obviously it was great. Like it was great that the touchdown were able to get those the tickets for that, and yeah, that was a good game as well. The Bills, the atmosphere was amazing for that game. I think that's probably the best atmosphere I've seen at a London game. I don't know what you think, but
Yeah, I'd agree. I wasn't there for the Packers Giants game, but I've heard that was electric when Rodgers, particularly when Rodgers came out for the Packers. But I'm with you. I felt that was. I think it's credit to the Bills fans. That was the loudest I've ever experienced any London game. I think the best game I've seen at London, I'll probably also would be Jags Dolphins in 2021. Also, I wasn't there for the Lions. Was it Lions Falcons where there was a massive comeback, or the Redskins game, Bengals game was a tie. I wasn't there for that, but
yeah, I think I was there for those last two you just said. I think I was at that the Lions Falcons one, and then obviously I was at as a Washington fan, and I was at that game, but it was dramatic at least.
yeah. I mean, it's I think most NFL fans hate a tie. It was just crazy that you got one in London. Not sure what it would have done for maybe first timers who had not seen an NFL game. But I remember a friend of mine, Tom Bolton. His first ever live NFL game was that Commanders Bengals game, and I think it's you say that I think back then that he wasn't really into the sport. That back he's going just for the experience, and that's when he sort of fell in love with the sport. But could have easily gone the other way. Could have easily, been an occasion where he watched a game and thought, "Oh, this game's rubbish. It did. No one won the game. I'm not going to watch it again." So yeah, so some great games, and I think there's been obviously some stingers in the past. You think about, I remember going to my first London game was Raiders Seahawks. I think it was 27 or 30 points to 3. I remember watching with my dad. I think it was Jags Texans. That was another one-sided effect. Albeit we got a really good performance from he or shall not be named for the Texans back then, but it's it wasn't a great game, and I don't think this most recent year, I don't think Jags Falcons was that great. I think that was probably the worst of the three. But equally, you got some great games in that Bills Jags game, and I don't know about you, but it was my first time doing it as well. And I just found that doing the media for the first time was just I couldn't believe I was there. To be honest, I was suffering a little bit with imposter syndrome. If I'm honest, I was when you go walk into the cafeteria in the kitchen, you've got in the queue, you've got Darren Fletcher queuing up for his food, or I remember I was queuing up for my food and talking to Sam Quack in the queue, and many other people like seeing the Around the NFL boys, and there's people Vooch from old days Copper 90 was there, and it's seeing people loads of people from the sports media world or just entertainment world in itself. I just thought it was I just couldn't believe I was doing it.
Yeah, exactly the same for me. But I thought you seemed much more at home there than I did, at least. So
Well, I had 1 week extra, so I had a week's experience to build up to it.
yeah, sure, yeah.
So you are a Commanders fan, as we've alluded to the reason you're on this podcast. So James, what made you a Commanders fan?
Yeah, so you'll probably get more interesting stories than this. But I'm just a Commanders fan because my dad was a Redskins fan. So he wasn't like a diehard fan of the NFL or anything like that. But I think he watched a Super Bowl, probably like the Redskins in the early 90s, put a bet on it or something, and won the bet or something like that. So he had a Redskins hat. And then when I was a teenager, around just before uni, I think some of my friends were interested in the NFL, so I just thought I'd get involved and had to pick a team. So yeah, I just picked the team that I knew, the Redskins, because yeah, like I said, my dad had a hat. So yeah, it's not a particularly exciting or interesting story, but obviously it's not really been, as a fan, for about 15 years. It's not really been a great time to be a fan of the Washington football team, the Redskins, the Commanders. But new ownership now, so hopefully this is the time where it all starts, and yeah, more promising times ahead.
Yeah, certainly. I think to be away from the Dan Snyder era almost feels like a Super Bowl win in itself. To be honest, I mean, just to get away from the chaos that happened around him and all the negativity, I think that alone
Sure.
was almost like the that was. I don't think the wins really mattered last season, because I think the most important thing that happened for you guys was the fact that Dan Snyder was no longer the owner, and I think anyone but him is a plus, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think last year, actually, like, obviously every team you want to win, your games, and you don't want to be the team that's the second overall pick. But it actually ended up turning out really well that the new sort of front office and the new ownership got that kind of fresh start, second overall pick, to sort of really help that building process. And obviously the new GM and the new head coach get to kind of start from scratch rather than kind of having to deal with the mess that we had before. So yeah, like as I said, like reasons to be optimistic. It doesn't really matter what happens for the team might not be successful this year or next year or anything like that, but you've got the new front office there, the new ownership, so you kind of got that trust that things will be better than they were. Because, like you said, anyone other than Dan Snyder is a win.
I want to ask you, because the only team we can do this with in the NFL. Have you got a situation where you could walk out the house and have a Commander's jersey, a Redskins hat, and a football team jacket? Is that something you've got? Have you got something for all three teams?
I haven't actually got anything for the football team. I don't think, but yeah, I'm obviously wearing a Commanders jersey right now, and I've got Redskins one behind me. I've got a Redskins hat, probably a scarf for the Redskins. So yeah, nothing for the football team, but definitely Redskins and Commanders.
Yeah, I kind of need you to. That'll be your homework. Will be to go away and find a Commander, Washington football team, like starter jacket or something like that. And I want to see all three Washington teams combined in one. I've not seen that yet. I think that's definitely possible, and I want to see someone donning it this year in London. I really do, because that'll be just fantastic. Because there's no other team. You think of the Raiders have moved location, but they've kept the same like logo, and
the
Rams had the same logo for a lot of time until, but they still kept the same name. They were still the Lewis Rams, LA Rams, but they've had three different team names. I think really, someone could really do something out of that, and I'd love to see it. Did allude to it slightly there at the end. Just want to go through the main ins and outs of the off season. So ins include the likes of Austin Eckler, Bobby Wagner, Olamide Zaccheaus, Jameson Crowder, Noah Igbenogany, Cleveland Farrell, Dante Fowler, Tyre Biatz, Marcus Mariota, and Zach Ertz, as well as re-signing our own British F.A. Abada. And then outs include the likes of Sam Howell via trade to the Seahawks, as well as Kendall Fuller, Curtis Samuel, Cody Barton, and Joey Sly. in terms of the draft, I've just lost it. There we are. Jayden Daniels, second overall out of LSU, the quarterback. Jazon Newton, Illinois defensive tackle, went 36th overall, as well as Mike Seinstrill, cornerback out of Michigan, going 50th overall. And then Ben Sinnott going 53rd overall, a tight end out of Kansas State. Just to name a few of the draft picks. One notable one later on in the draft was, of course, the brother of Christian McCaffrey, Luke, receiver out of Rice. The crazy name for uni. 100th overall. So overall for you, James, your take on the off-season as a whole?
Yeah, so, I mean, I like what the team did in free agency and the majority of the draft. Kind of what I've said already is the main thing is about the new ownership and getting competent people into the front office. I think they signed the most free agents of any team. I'm not 100% on that. I don't know if there's any team that signed more free agents. So it was a case. It was definitely more volume because the roster needed a big overhaul. So it was more of a case of getting as many startable or viable NFL players in the door, and then that allowed the draft. They could obviously focus on the players that they wanted, and they didn't have to focus on specific positions. But really, it's all going to come down to. We're going to talk about him later, but it's all going to come down to Jayden Daniels, and that's going to be whether or not the off season was a success or not. Is how good is he? How does he translate to the NFL? There's reason to be optimistic over all of the signings, all of the drafts, all of the players we drafted. But yeah, it's going to come down to that. But as I said, it's just refreshing to see the new ownership and front office there making their own decision.
We may as well go into it now. You mentioned Daniels there. I mean, second overall pick, pretty consensus. I think it was people. I think the guess was between Drake May and Daniels for second overall pick, and he went with Daniels. And what are some of your expectations for him year one? Because there's a lot of rookie quarterbacks that have not done so well in their first year. You think about Peyton Manning's the obvious example, gone on to be a Hall of Famer, multiple time Super Bowl winner and MVP. And there's CJ Stroud, who's gone into his rookie year and absolutely smashed it. And Lamar Jackson had his moments in his rookie year. But then on the other hand, you think of Zach Wilson, got pushed into it straight away. He didn't succeed. But then on the other hand as well, you think about sort of best quarterbacks of all time of all stats. Brady was obviously the backup of Drew Bledsoe for a bit. Rodgers infamously sat behind Brett Favre, and Love has done that now with Rodgers, and they seem to have worked out with Love. You think about Mahomes spending 1 year behind Alex Smith. You think about even Lamar Jackson had a first half of his rookie year was behind Joe Flacco, and then obviously he'd gone to win 2 MVPs. So it's definitely sort of a reason to and not start him, because you think about the Texans, they've started Stroud straight away, and he's just been pretty much amazing, especially down the stretch. But you do worry about other quarterbacks like Zach Wilson, who didn't have that luxury, and he had a difficult first year. You think of Caleb Williams obviously will start, and you think about May and McCarthy might not start, but it's expected widely that Daniels will start in week 1 for the Commanders, which is against the Buccaneers. More on that later on. What are your expectations for him? Are you expecting him just to have the mistakes in him and just that's okay? Or what you sort of think about him going into the rookie year?
You mentioned a lot of players there. I'll be very happy for about 50% of them if he ends up having the careers that they've had. I think the obvious one you didn't mention that you would kind of compare him to is obviously RG3, who now they're different players, but they're both dual threat quarterbacks drafted second overall by the same team, and they both won the Heisman. I'm pretty sure RG3 won the Heisman in the year he was drafted as well. So there's a lot to not compare, but a lot of parallels to draw on between the two of them. And obviously RG3 had an amazing rookie season, and that was kind of it. And that kind of, not to keep going over the same point, I think that when RG3 was there, there was still the chaos in the behind the scenes and things like that. So hopefully with Daniels, I'm not saying he's going to be anywhere near have the rookie season that RG3 had, but he should have a more of a stable, set up behind him. In terms of actual expectations, yeah, he's definitely going to have to start week one. I think it's Mariota the backup, and we've seen enough of him in recent years. Hopefully, he's sort of helps him out a bit, but I think Daniels is definitely going to have to start. And yeah, it's probably going to be rocky at times. There's lots of sort of cut up clips on YouTube of all the hits that he's taken. He took in his college career. So obviously, there's areas there that that need to sort of be brushed up on in the NFL. It's just a case of seeing the promise. I think there's obviously Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator there, and there's kind of the jury's out on him, I think. But hopefully they get the offense set up to help him out as much as possible, which is something that did happen, I get, with RG3 when he was a rookie, at times at least. So yeah, it's difficult to say, obviously, with the rookie quarterback. So it's the hardest position for the NFL to judge, isn't it? But yeah, there's optimism. There's definitely optimism. Like I said, he's going to be the week one starter. I'd be very surprised if he isn't. And yeah, the Bucks up early. I think we've got a fairly favourable schedule early on, so hopefully he gets off to a good start.
Certainly, we will. Of course, we will later on in the final segment go through our win-loss tie section, where James will predict every game of the season with answering a win-loss tie record, and in the end, he'll come up with his team's record prediction for the season. But before we do that, one in we haven't mentioned is not a player in, but a head coaching in, as Dan Quinn replaces the fired Ron Rivera, and he, of course, has experience head coach. He took the Falcons to the Super Bowl, the infamous 28-3. But what kind of Dan Quinn are you expecting to get Washington? Because his stock has fallen in recent years. Are you thinking you're going to get the Dan Quinn that took the Falcons to the Super Bowl, or you could get the Dan Quinn, the head coach that lost that game and never really recovered? What are you expecting out of Dan Quinn as your head coach?
So yeah, with Dan Quinn, I think you'd probably struggle to find any of the teams that were hiring a head coach in this offseason where the fans kind of had Dan Quinn as their first choice. So, I'm not going to say, I'm delighted with the appointment and expecting great things. But I think the thing is that the players that he's coached seem to really like him. I think he's brought over a fair few from the Cowboys that he had on defense last year. And I think you're right. He as a head coach for the Falcons, he never really recovered from that Super Bowl loss. I think a lot of that was he lost Kyle Shanahan as well. I think Kyle Shanahan left after the Super Bowl, like the day after. And obviously there's a lot of conversation from that game about Shanahan's decisions and things like that. But as a coordinator, we knew he was fantastic, and obviously he's fantastic as a head coach. And I think that had a big impact on Dan Quinn as the head coach of the Falcons. I think he had a couple of good seasons after Shanahan left, but it was obviously they weren't Super Bowl contenders ever again. So for me, a lot of it was important that the offensive coordinator hiring was important, almost as important as the head coach, after you decided that Dan Quinn was going to be your head coach. And you've obviously got the rookie quarterback there, so the offensive coordinator was vital. As I said, jury's probably out on Kingsbury. Obviously, a few years as head coach of the Cardinals, and they were okay. I think they kind of got better each season and then didn't, and it was obviously really bad towards the end. Hopefully, as a coordinator, he can be a bit more creative than he was as a head coach, and maybe he'll have more time to focus on things like that. And for me, it's about how those two are going to work, how they're going to get the most out of the rookie quarterback. There's reasons to be optimistic. I think Dan Quinn has done good job as defensive coordinator as well at the Cowboys. So hopefully, I mean, the Washington defense was awful last season. So yeah, hopefully there's an improvement there as well.
Absolutely, and I think as a first year head coach for the team, and you've got a rookie quarterback, it sort of is like a get out of jail free card unless it goes horrendously wrong, like Urban Meyer or Steve Wilkes at Arizona. I think if you're gonna have years when mistakes are made, I think this is the year because it's a brand new system for the players, brand new game plan, sort of everything else that goes involved when you've got a new coaching staff in place, a rookie quarterback as well. So yeah, I don't think you probably are expecting to win playoff games and reach the Super Bowl, but I think we were saying this with the Panthers episode we had. As long as there's progress, I think that's probably, I can imagine for you guys, that's all that matters. Solid 7-win season, 8-win season, just being in contention for the playoffs. I think that probably is would represent a good season.
Yeah, definitely. Like the record itself, you want to see the wins tick up from the previous season, obviously, but it's a case of seeing the progress on the field more than the win-loss record. Like seeing that Daniels can work in the system or can be an NFL level quarterback, and the defense improves. Like I said, I think the schedule's fairly favourable, but the division, Cowboys and Eagles, you're kind of expecting 4 losses there already before the season's even started. So yeah, it is definitely about progress. I don't expect that they're going to be a playoff team and things like that, but like you said, just some sort of optimism and progress that in the future that will be the case. And who knows what's going to happen with the Cowboys next year. They've got a lot of extensions that they need to be sorting out. So maybe in a year's time, it's the Commanders and the Eagles vying for the division. You never know. So yeah, you just with every team, there's no point being a fan of an NFL team if you're not going to be optimistic in the preseason. But yeah, obviously we've got to temper the expectations. Everyone knows that this isn't going to be a competing team right now.
We mentioned expectation there, and that's where we will segue into our win-loss tie section. So week 1, you mentioned it earlier on, it's a road game against the Buccaneers.
So yeah, as a road game, I'm going to go with a loss to start the season. It might be different if it was at home, but I'll go with a loss.
Okay, and week 2 is your first home game of the season. As you take on the New York Giants.
Yeah, first win of the season against the Giants. Awful recent record against the Giants, really, with Daniel Jones as quarterback. But this will be a win.
Okay, so then week 3 is a first of 2 straight road games. The first one coming against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, the 2 LSU quarterbacks there. Obviously Burrow and Daniels, but yeah, I can't really go for a win here, can I? So I have to go for a loss.
No, that's probably one of the easy ones to predict in this list, unless Burrow was to get injured prior to the game. Week 4, you're taking on the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, no surprise that I'll go for a win there. If you're gonna predict any wins for the Commanders, you've got to go for that one.
Okay, I thought you might have gone for a loss there, but yeah, fair enough. This is a tough 2-game stretch now. The first one coming at home to the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, another tough one. Home though, I'm going to go for a win. As I said, there's no point being an NFL fan if you're not going to be optimistic. So I'll go for a win. Not going to go for a win in the one after though.
Yeah, because it's on the road against the Ravens. That is probably, especially for your schedule, probably as hard as it comes for you this season.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously not far to travel, but yeah, I can't expect much from that game.
Dude, that's what I couldn't believe. Actually, I went to FedEx Field last season for the Eagles game, and there was so many more Eagles fans than Washington fans, and I couldn't believe when I'd been there before, not even realised this was the case. When I went back there, I only realised when I met up with friend of mine, Riley, who I met out in America, who might be listening. He's a Commanders fan. He might be listening to this podcast. So shout out if he is listening to this podcast, saying about how close it is to Pennsylvania and how far away it is actually from DC. And I didn't realize that where I was staying Airbnb wise was only for 30 minutes on the subway was in Virginia. It wasn't even in the state of Washington DC. So it's incredible that actually you're probably closer to Baltimore than you are DC at the FedEx Field, which is for me crazy in my opinion. But yes, I can imagine when you next play them at home, I'm going to keep a close eye on the crowds to see just what kind of. Obviously, things could change because I'm sure if the Commanders were winning 10 games a season by that time, we're having a great season. Then I think you'll see more Commanders fans come out. But I think the way it has been the last few years, and the way it was certainly in terms of when I was there, the Eagles and Commanders fans percentage are different. I think I'd love to see what that is because I bet it's I bet it would be something like 70% Ravens.
What stage of the season was that game? Do you remember?
Oh, it was in.
I'm imagining
it was in October. I remember that. It was the first Sunday after the London games, maybe the second. I think it was the last October of that year. I think.
So there's enough time for the Commanders to have had a few losses. The fans to be disillusioned already.
Oh, I thought you meant the one that happened last year. This one's only in week 6, so that's going to be probably a sort early October. I think.
I did mean the one you went to where it was all the Eagles fans. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Oh right, yeah. It's At that point the season was done for the Commanders. I think it was. I can't even think who was quarterback now for the Commanders. That game, I don't think it. I can't think who it was now quarterback for the Commanders. I've probably forgotten someone really obvious. Quarterback for you guys, but it was actually a good game. The Commanders were leading, I think, at one point, and then the Eagles just took over and won. I've forgotten the scoreline as well, but I remember obviously the Eagles won. But it was a good experience, and obviously do check out the Euro Trips channel for my experience at FedEx and for my unexpected trip to a box through Riley, friend of the friend I made out in America, who hopefully is listening to this podcast. Who through his work they had a box, so they got me in second half. That was an amazing experience. That was just to be able to watch the game at the halfway line rather than being up in the gods, and with ridiculously comfy seats and free food and drink. I can't really thank them enough for that experience. Week 7, you go from one of your hardest games this season to one of your easiest, a home game against the Panthers.
Yeah, another one where there's no reason being a fan of the Commanders if you're not going to hope that they win that game. So I'll go for a win there against the Panthers.
Okay, week 8 is against at home the Chicago Bears.
Another win, I think. Obviously, they've got the first overall pick, Caleb Williams. The roster should be better set up, but again, home game, so I'm going win.
Okay, and then week 9, you're against the Giants once again, but this time you're on the road.
Yeah, so on the road equals loss, I think.
Coming from extreme optimism to maybe not as much.
It just recent years in divisional matchups, it's not been good. So yeah,
fair enough. Week 10, you're back at home. This time against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think I might have gone win of every home game. So why would I change that now?
I love that. I love the enthusiasm. This is why we like getting fans of each team on, because you get that passion and that fan base really honed in on the episodes. I love it. Week 11, you're against the Eagles again, but this time at the Link.
Yeah, that's a loss.
Yeah,
I think a couple of years ago we did beat the Eagles in Philadelphia, but you can't be backing on that.
No, that is a fierce place to go to as a road team. Now, week 12, you take on the Dallas Cowboys at home.
Yeah, maybe I'm being a bit too optimistic, but I have written down a win here. There's got to be some sort of win against someone in the division other than the Giants at some point, surely.
You like to think so, wouldn't you? You would like to think so. And Dan Quinn, of course, will know the Cowboys players inside. He'll know inside and out what they're about, what kind of plays they like. And I think if any chance you're going to beat them, it's going to be when you got their former DC as your head coach. So that's going to be intriguing to see. Week 13, you're at home again, but this time against the Tennessee Titans.
This might be one of the few games where we'd probably be favourites to win. So yeah, I can't not say win on that one.
No, exactly. They're going to be, I think, certainly one of the worst teams in the conference, I think, without doubt. Now, you've got the perfect bye week in week 14 before your road game in week 15 against the New Orleans Saints.
Another one that, that probably could go either way, but I'll go with the Saints. So I'll say we'll lose that one.
Okay. And then week 16 is a home game against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, having gone for the win against the Cowboys at home, I can't do it. We're obviously not going to beat both the Cowboys and Eagles at home. So, yeah, we'll have a loss there.
Okay, so that means your final home game of the season is in week 17 against the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, so another win there. That'll be I think that takes us up to 9. Because obviously, hopefully, Cousins will be starting and it'll be his return. But I'll say we'll win.
That means going to week 18 on a 9-7 record. You're on the road to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, again, I'd love to say win. What will probably happen is we'll probably need to win this game to get into the playoffs. Obviously, if it's gone as I've said, and then the Cowboys will rest all their starters and we'll still lose. And then miss out. I think that happened a few years ago. I think it was the Giants. So yeah, we're not going to beat Cowboys, but home and away.
No, and that is, we like to give the Cowboys sticks sometimes. NFL fans do. But, you can't fault them in a regular season game at home. The last few years, they've been superb. And I think they're definitely one of the harder teams to go to, certainly from weeks 1 to 15 in an NFL season. They're extremely good at home when the time suits them. But that is where we will end the podcast for today. So once again, huge thank you to James for coming on today.
Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. And for those who are watching on YouTube, you can see his social media handle, so go give him a follow. But for those who are listening on podcast or Spotify, James, tell the audience how they can find you on socials and give you a follow.
Yeah, so Twitter @JamesC294. I'm not massively active on there, but as you mentioned earlier, I do some writing for the Touchdown, mainly fantasy related stuff. So yeah, there'll be some posts and things like that coming up over the next few weeks for sure.
Great stuff, and do check out his work. But in the meantime, this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast, our Washington Commanders season preview with your host, Andy Davis, our guest and Commanders fan, James Collier, and we'll see you guys on next team preview.